Now it is my great pleasure to introduce Rotem Rosenthal.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much. And it's so great being here. It gives me such great pleasure to welcome everyone to this virtual opening of Street Photography Around the World exhibition. As Matthew noted, this is the 8th time we're organizing this very special event. And we look forward to sharing works tonight with you that were made by incredible photographers from across the globe. So every year we get to share a remarkable thematic collection with the world, exploring innovative photographic perspectives and visual storytelling. And the selected works then provide this incredible panoramic view of our changing streets and lives, but also of the field of photography in and of itself, and specifically documentary photography. The LA Center of Photography, as I'm sure many of you know, builds a community of dedicated photographers and works to strengthen the importance of photography as an art form by providing education, events, exhibitions, portfolio reviews, and public programs. It's exciting, and you should all participate always. So since 2013, LACP created a vibrant community of members that I'm now so proud to be a part of, and offered learning and mentorship opportunities to hundreds of photographers, image-based artists, and emerging creatives. And I'm also very delighted to introduce you to this year's presenting artists that were selected by Meryl Meisler. So tonight, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be hearing from Meryl Meisler in just one moment. We're also going to be hearing from our winners, Michell and David Herman. And then we will have time at the end for Q&A. So during their presentations, please use the Q&A function to drop your questions, and we will take them at the end. So now let me introduce you to Meryl Meisler. Meryl studied photography with Cavalier Ketchum at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Lisette Model in New York City. She moved to New York City in 1975, where she photographed the streets by day and the legendary discos at night, which I feel is a topic for a completely different webinar that we should probably host at some point. Upon retiring from 31 years as an NYC public school art teacher, she began releasing large bodies of previously unseen work in exhibitions and books. Her monographs include A Tale of Two Cities, Disco Era Bushwick, and New York Paradise Lost, Bushwick Era Disco. All are internationally acclaimed. And a new book of her street photography from 1973 to 2021 is forthcoming. And Meryl, we're going to have you back there talking about it once it's out.
Thank you.
I have a feeling we need to have some conversations about that. Her work was shown at numerous places, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Brooklyn Historical Society, Clamp Art, Dia Art Foundation, Mass MoCA, Islip Art Museum, Annenberg Space for Photography, Center for Photography at Woodstock, and the New Museum for Contemporary Art, among others. You can learn more about her project in her website, and I think it'll make its way momentarily to our chat. So Meryl, welcome to LACP. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm just so honored to be here and to be invited. This was an incredible experience for me. There were over 2,000 entries, well over. I've never looked at so many images, and the judging, the process was totally blind. I could see images, but there was no name, location, date, even the titles were cryptid. So I was just looking at the photographs. They had to speak for themselves. And I decided to use Lightroom as a method of doing a once over and then bringing them all into Lightroom and really looking at one image at a time, one series. First I did the single images and I brought them in, and I would, I'll use the star system, 1 star, then go back again, then 2, 3, until it went up to 5 stars. And I would sleep on it till overnight. And then I would work, then I did the series, and I brought them in all in, and again, through the same process of what stood out to me, or was like something I've never seen before, like an unusual point of view. It was incredible. And it was tough, because I would like give it some thought overnight before going in for another round again, till ultimately I had to make a choice, flag the finalists, and then the order of what would be the 1, 2, 3. It was challenging because all the entries were so great. And if I didn't select your work, we all have our different perspectives of life. To every single person who has the nerve to not just go out on the street, bring their camera, but then to edit it and submit it to something like this, I toast you. It really does take guts to put yourself out there and then put your work out there as well. And congratulations to everyone. And thank you, LICP, for building a community, because as photographers, we need to lift each other up and keep each other going. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Ellen Michell.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much to everyone who came, and thank you also to LACP for having this contest. I was so happy and surprised when I got the email saying that I won. And also thank you so much to Meryl for liking my images. I've been a fan of her work ever since seeing it on Clampart's Instagram a few years back for the first time. I'm going to speak a little bit right now about my Benches series. It's called Benches of Seaside Heights. I'm going to share my screen right now. I'll speak a little bit more about this photo later, but before I show you more from the series, I'm going to talk very briefly about Seaside itself and my history with it. Then I'll go over the project's beginning stages and how it's taken shape since then. First, I want to show you where I photographed this series, since you don't really see it in my images. This is the boardwalk at Seaside Heights, New Jersey. I grew up nearby, and I've been walking down this boardwalk my entire life. It's about a mile long with about 45 to 50 benches. I took that photo yesterday, but in the summertime, it would have been very crowded. For the past 5 summers, I've walked up and down that boardwalk every single day, and I've taken a candid photo of every single bench. I start around 3 p.m. and ends when my shadow starts pushing into the frame. Sometimes I like my shadow in pictures, but in this series, I don't. I feel like these pictures are about the subjects and I don't belong in them. I wind up with thousands of photos every summer. I edit down to the ones that interest me. I make little 4x6 prints and store them in a box. Last summer, I wound up with about 600. I plan to continue this over the very long term, possibly my entire life. My goal is to eventually have Benches photos from over a period of decades so that they form a narrative about time, place, and history. If you've heard of Seaside, it's probably because of the Jersey Shore TV show, which was filmed here. Apart from that, Seaside is consistently one of the poorest towns in the state. Here's what it looks like. As a disclaimer, this is not one of the nicer hotels in town, but there are no hotels over 2.5 stars. Seaside is also very conservative. I found out in 2016 that my county is the most conservative county in the state. But to me, Seaside is just home, home really meaning the shore. It has a lot of what defines the shore, including the beach, the rides, the rowdy bars with gross bathrooms, but most of all, the huge crowds of visitors. Seaside's visitors are actually very diverse in a lot of ways, economically, ethnically, and culturally. So that's why I wanted to photograph here, and that's why the series is set here. The project started when I first took my first street photography class at ICP in New York City. The teacher showed us some photos Bruce Gilden had taken in New York City, candidly and with a flash. I really related to his emphasis on characters. His photos reminded me of the people I saw on the boardwalk every summer. At first, the photos I took were much more pictorial. I am resisting the urge to reprocess them. I lost the original files anyway. I'm not sure when I stopped wanting to make them into little paintings and look at them in a more documentary sense. Maybe because I saw the town change so much in a short time, particularly after Superstorm Sandy, and then again in 2016. Before that, it was just an interesting place with a lot of childhood memories. Afterward, I realized things would keep changing much more quickly than I realized, and that these changes told a story I did not yet understand, but might understand later with time and perspective. Now I'll show you more from the Benches series. What made me continue with the series is that I found some of the images really funny and entertaining. There were a lot of slightly off moments that were so ordinary and so unexceptional, but felt so true and so funny. Throwaway moments like these sometimes said really interesting things. I also like to find pictures that say something about what's going on in the rest of the world, even if I'm not quite sure exactly what they're saying about it. I'm not really the type of person to methodically plan a shoot. I really didn't like assignments where I had to stand in one place and wait for something to happen. I like to walk and I like to keep moving. At first, I perceived that as a lack of discipline, but with street photography, chance and spontaneity can actually work for me. I would never have planned to take these photos, even if I somehow could have. If at first I didn't get the image I'd wanted, at first I'd circle back around or try to wait for a better moment. But more often than not, I didn't like the pictures I tried to plan. But then an image I barely remembered shooting turned out to be more interesting because of something completely arbitrary. Most of the ones I liked captured something I didn't see at the time. So I learned to just embrace that and leave everything to chance. I also don't want to get too attached to one group and then miss something happening on the next bench. So I completely stopped looking at who or what I was shooting. I just keep moving. I love to be surprised when I see the images later on at home, and for me, that's the greatest pleasure about working this way. There are only a few times I can remember walking by someone and thinking, I really hope I got them. Here's one. I thought these women were fabulous. I absolutely loved their outfits, the color red, the fuzzy slippers, and the girls' day out feeling of it. My favorites are the ones that make me laugh, and I'm surprised by how interesting facial expressions and body language can be, even when nothing is really going on in the photos. Or even when people are just staring off into space. I have a lot of these. Occasionally, I get something that hints at more of a story, although there is no way for me to know more. Here are a few photos I took that capture the town's conservative flavor. The red hat is a MAGA hat. The little boy's mask says, "Let liberals cry again." His button says, "2020 Trump, fuck your feelings." This man's shirt says, "I can't hear you over the sound of my own freedom." This shirt says, "I clean my gun with liberal tears." The mask and the blue shirt were likely purchased in one of Seaside's boutiques. I recognize them. When I edit the photos down, they tend to fall into groupings. I have a lot of couples, and one subset that I find amusing are the couples who just completely ignore each other, or couples who echo each other's body language. And here are some happy couples, or at least people who seem relatively content with one another. I could say that these photos are truthful since they simply depict what was there. However, none of them really tell the whole story. While there are a lot of things I can tell about the people by the way they are dressed or how they are interacting, it's at most a very fragmented or even misleading portrayal. For instance, this photo. Because I took several frames of this family in a row, I know the mom was off to the right. So the poor dad is exonerated. This was July 5th, by the way. I really can't blame him for being tired. These are taken with a digital mirrorless camera, and since I'm moving, I get the rolling shutter effect, even at 1/1000th of a second. I have to zoom in to fix that. Sometimes I notice a lot of small details, like how many people wear cross necklaces. And in this picture, When I zoomed in, I saw that the little boy in the middle holding a French fry is also holding a set of white plastic fangs. My holy grail is big groups, but I don't get many. Usually one person is standing facing the bench. Because I shoot with a 28mm lens, their backsides look huge and almost completely block the shot. But maybe someday I'll get a really interesting photo of someone's butt. Families are always really fun to look at. Here is a sampling I have of them. I also get a lot of photos of people eating. Some of these are funny, but after a while, I get tired of looking at them. I love silliness, but I like the pictures to be about something else too. Like this one, which shows not only a silly moment, but the awkwardness and tenderness of young love. Or this one, which says something about years of togetherness. I also shoot benches with no people or people on their huge piles of stuff. I did a whole mini series this summer on that. Here is a series of adults with the stuffed animals they want at arcade games. I love that one because you can't really tell at first that the dog is real and not actually a stuffed animal. And here are a few people with balls. And very randomly, people with towels on their heads. I'll end with this picture of twins. That's one picture I really wish I knew more about. I wonder what it was someone did or said to get that reaction, and I wonder what happened next. So that's the series. Hopefully it keeps growing and becomes something worth engaging with over the long term. I post a lot of the pictures on Instagram that aren't on my site. For instance, on Mother's Day, I'll post some moms from last summer. I also post couples on Valentine's Day, things like that. So if you like the series and want to see more, please give me a follow. I'll give someone my Instagram link to put in a chat. Thank you for listening.
Ellen, thank you so much for sharing all this with us and for taking us with you to all the images and all the places that you've seen. Thank you for also being our series winner for this year. And now I want to introduce you to David Herman, who is our single image winner, who also received an honorable mention for an additional image. David, thank you so much for being here. We will hear from David, and then we'll all reconvene and take some of the questions that I see everybody started dropping in the Q&A. Please continue on doing so, and we'll take them soon. Thank you so much.
First of all, that was very enjoyable. Thank you very much. I really appreciated seeing all those bench pictures. Great. And Meryl, thank you very much for choosing one of my pictures, actually two of them, but one of them in particular, because it's also my favorite picture. Street photography is a process to me, and it is actually, you have to love to wander. The way I look at street photography is It's relaxing. It's like meditation. I wander the streets aimlessly. And in order to, I think, be a good street photographer, you have to love to just walk the streets and wander. You have to love the process, because very few pictures will turn out exactly the way you want. And very few pictures you're going to want to show to people. So you're going to have to enjoy the process. And I actually have a method that I'd like to talk about, since I used to teach a class at Sammy's for a few years. And I'd like to go over some of the things that people always asked me. First of all, when I go out shooting, I dress in usually dark clothing. I dress in a hat and a t-shirt maybe that doesn't have any logos on it, because I don't want anybody to read anything. I don't want anybody to look at me. I want to be as inconspicuous as possible. I of course wear sneakers or some walking comfortable shoes. And my camera is extremely small. Most of my street pictures are taken with a small Fuji camera with either a 24mm lens or a 28, and occasionally a 35mm. I don't carry a camera bag at all. I don't need one. I put a spare battery in my pocket and a spare card in case a card goes wrong. And if I do carry an extra lens, I usually have a pocket big enough to put it in, because the Fuji cameras and lenses are very small. Often I'll take a polarizer with me if I want to shoot through windows and I want to eliminate the glare. Everybody also asks, what are the settings on the camera? I make my camera totally point and shoot. It's almost as if I'm using a Brownie or an iPhone. It's usually 500th of a second at f8 or f11. And my ISO is on auto with a maximum of 1600, maybe 32, but 1600 most of the time. And it's a manual focus or zone focus, so that I'm focused in on almost everything from 10 feet to infinity. Now, okay, so now I'm walking the streets. What do? Get out of my car and I start to just wander. And I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't have a plan. I just feel like walking. And whenever I see something that stops me, I say to myself, why does that stop me? What is it about this scene that stops me and wants to share it with anybody else? And so what I usually do is look at it really carefully, walk around a little bit. And if nothing is particularly happening, sometimes I'll sit and wait for 5 or 10 minutes. And if something happens in the scene, then I'll shoot. But I'm usually carrying the camera on my side of my leg with their strap wrapped around my hand, so the camera is unobtrusive and I can quickly bring it up to my eye, shoot, and then take it down. Sometimes I don't even get it to my eye. It just shoot, just like that. What I look for mostly is relationships. I'm looking for people interacting with other people. I'm looking for that aha moment when people are laughing or gesturing, they have some expression, they're doing something with each other that is some part of human nature. What I don't look for is documentary photography. I'm not a documentary photographer. I'm not looking for anything that smacks of taking advantage of disadvantaged people on the street. In other words, somebody that may be a homeless person. I would not shoot a homeless person. I look for the beauty and the joy in interrelationships and people doing funny things in public. That's what I'm looking for. And the light is not that important to me. What's really important to me is content, because I figure I can fix some of the light in post-processing. So I'm looking for things that, as if you were an anthropologist and you're searching for interesting things about human nature. That's what I look for. My demeanor is I walk very slowly. I don't try to attract attention by walking quickly. Sometimes I'll stand someplace for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 12 minutes, whatever it takes. I'll stand there. If you stand long enough someplace, you're invisible. People don't notice you. And that's what I often do. I scan. I scan the horizon as I'm walking. I keep my eyes moving because I never know when there's going to be something that's going to catch my interest. I smile a lot. I don't want people to feel at all threatened. So if somebody sees me with a camera, I'll smile and walk on. Sometimes if it's such an interesting subject or scene, I'll come back. And I'll come back to it when they haven't noticed me or when they think I'm part of the scenery. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is talk about the picture that was chosen. So let's share screen here. And I think this will work. Oops, let's see. There we go. Meryl, thank you very much for choosing this picture. This was one of my favorite pictures. It was taken in Port Townsend, which is on the Olympic Peninsula, that's off of Washington, the state of Washington. It's off of Seattle. I got up early in the morning. I was on a photo workshop for something completely different. I got up early in the morning and I saw these two women. And I'd like to work through how I shot this picture because it's illustrative of my methodology. As I was walking, this is what I saw. I saw these two women and I saw this baby carriage. That's all I saw. I didn't see the face of the woman on the right. I didn't see any gesture. I didn't see anything exciting. But I did see potential. And so what I tried to do was walk a little closer, and I wanted to walk to the left because I didn't want the woman on the right's head to be against the billboard. The next shot was over there. Still nothing exciting, and still those billboards were bothering me. And I'm a little bit closer at this point. And the women haven't seen me yet. The woman saw me as she turned around and she sort of posed a little bit. But then I noticed something really interesting. The two babies were not babies. They were dolls. I saw tremendous potential here. It's just a matter of how many pictures I had to take and where I had to go to get this picture. I waited a little bit longer. I put the camera down to my side and I walked around to the other side so I would be a little less obtrusive. This was terrible. I didn't have the babies. I didn't have a good shot at all. All I had was the cell phone. Now, I am actually breaking my own rule because one of my rules is you never show people your outtakes because then they say, hey, Meryl's probably thinking to herself as she's looking at this, I don't know why I ever chose that picture. But then I saw this picture, and it was absolutely perfect. But you'll notice that I had to raise the camera over my head to take this shot. This is not taken at eye level. And I had to raise the camera in order to show the two babies in the carriage were not real. I love this picture because it has a story to it. And my story is this woman on the left is looking at the woman on the right and saying to her, those babies kept me up all night long. You're not going to believe that. Everybody brings their own story to these pictures, and I love to find a picture, and it's once in maybe 500 where you can get a story like this. This is another one of my favorite pictures, and this also has a story to it, totally unposed. This was taken in Central Park, and this was taken, the model on the, this was taken after a rain, and the model on the left was posing for photographers, and she sat down to fix her makeup. She, I'm not even sure, saw this guy or cared. And this guy was sitting on the bench, and he was there before she sat down. At first she sat down and she wasn't applying her makeup. She was just resting. Then she took out her makeup and started to apply it. And that gesture was the gesture that caught this. 2 seconds later, she gets up and moves, and the picture's gone. It was just lucky I was there at the time, and I was just lucky that she did the gesture. His expression was priceless. Here's another story that I love. This was taken in right across the street from Angel's Flight in downtown LA near Grand Central Market. This couple saw me shooting, and they laughed, they smiled, I smiled back, and I walked away. I came back 5 minutes later, and they were embracing. And I just love this picture because of the wine, the color, and the expression on her face. Okay, so this one was also a picture taken in an arcade on the Santa Monica Pier. Also one of my favorite pictures, also unposed. I must have waited a half an hour to get this picture. People went in and out of this photo booth, and I was going for a shot of the legs, and I was hoping to get several sets of legs. I didn't, but I did get hands, and so I was very happy. Sometimes you get a picture and you just say to yourself, thank the photo gods. They just gave me something I wasn't looking for, and you were there, and next thing you know, you got a picture that's worthy of viewing from other people. Like that one. This one was, again, a shot taken on Venice Beach. I had to move to the right so that the woman who's taking the picture of the bodybuilder was not blocking the bodybuilder. It's very important to me to have foreground, background, and midground not blocking each other. And so this picture, I had to move around quite a bit. And I was very lucky that as I was moving around, the woman on the right reached over to touch this man's thighs. If anybody knows who this gentleman is, I would love to know who it is. I know he's a famous bodybuilder, and I think he's Israeli, but I'm not sure. Anyhow, this is the picture that won for honorable mention. It was taken at Hollywood, and actually what I was going for was this. And then what happened was somebody walked in my way, and I said, oh, that's terrific. Let me get low and see if I can get legs. So then I got that. And then I did it in black and white, didn't work at all. It was just not enough. Separation, went back to color. This is the last picture. And this one is also one of my favorites because it's sort of like the one before. The one before is sort of like an optical illusion, or it's sort of like a trick using a flat screen. And this is the same thing. This is taken at Bryant Park in 42nd Street, right behind the library on a rainy day. And there's an individual walking behind this poster, and the poster absolutely mimics the background. So I stood there and waited and waited and waited until I got the picture I wanted. It probably took about 10 shots to get that. But that's the whole idea, is to watch and wait. And, some of these pictures, just being there and having the camera ready and just being aware. And I sometimes wish that my eye was a camera and I could just blink it and then put my finger in a computer and out would come an image. But until that happens, I'm going to be carrying around a camera. Thank you, everyone.
in the few minutes we have left, we would like to address some of the questions that have come up around your work. So first of all, so wonderful to see your works and also see them side by side. It's very exciting to be able to share this work with everyone. So maybe we'll start with one of the questions that came up in the chat to Ellen. A question about the subjects. As they don't seem to notice you, yet you seem so close to them. Could you talk a little bit about that process and how you created the seriality of the work?
Oh, occasionally some people notice me, but it's very crowded there. And I think people are just sitting, they're relaxing. They're not really paying attention to people walking by necessarily. So I blend in. Yeah, I also hold it by my hips sometimes. I try not to look when I'm shooting them. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But yeah, people don't really pay that much attention. And I feel like there are so many characters going by. If they do notice me sometimes, they just think there's another weirdo. Or, sometimes they'll wave to me if they see me, and I'll get pictures of people waving, or I have somebody who gives me a peace sign every time I walk by.
What?
So yeah. And then I got another gesture one time as well. But yeah, most people don't seem to notice or particularly care.
I'm curious, you know, I looking now at your series and hearing you talking about that as well, I was struck by how the benches become a character in and of themselves with the people, with them. Now that you've spoken about how you're kind of fascinated with them as a subject matter, and in a way, visually, it also really highlighted a sense of loneliness in the images, which I think is something that your work also has in common with David's work, because there is a sense of loneliness in these images. Meryl, I wonder if you kind of noticed that, or if you saw any of those through lines between both of their works.
I treated them totally separately.
Mm-hmm.
But what struck me Ellen, what struck me about yours was so unusual that it was even vertical. Like you say, oh, it's a bench, it should be horizontal. And it was a slice of life. Each image is a slice of life, and the color, you could scoop it up, you know. And David, I'm like, I really have to look in that photograph and like, oh my God, what is going on? And the conversation, and I didn't even, I thought she was holding the woman who had the dolls. I thought she had a cigar in her hand, but you can see, I enjoyed seeing your outtakes. And I enjoyed, Ellen, your story, not the fuller body of work, that it's tremendous, but as you can see, you're an educated David. It was educational to watch your process and how
Absolutely.
that you think it all through.
Absolutely.
No, I didn't want to say, I wasn't putting together, I had to think, am I putting together a show? No, I wanted to say, out of all this amazing work, this goes beyond a National Geographic beauty.
Absolutely.
It's not something I've seen before, or it was an intimate situation that I might have walked by, but I never, ever could imagine anyone else capturing that photograph. They're really very special.
David, I do have a question about that as well. And you know, really, it's interesting now to look at both of your projects together and see some of the connecting tissues, especially in your process and the way you both work with the open street and with the people that you're capturing. And my question to you about that is, you showed us how you kind of walked around the women and caught them from different angles. And I was wondering about, you know, you talked about your process. Can you talk a little bit about your interaction with your photographed subjects? Like those women, did they notice what you're doing? Like, how did they, or I should say, how did they respond to you? What happened there?
Well, first of all, as a general rule, I do not talk to any of the people I shoot. I like to shoot and move on. I do not try to interact with any of these people. If they see me, I just smile, put the camera against my leg and move on. If they talk to me, then I will interact with them. And usually it's, why are you taking the picture? Or are you taking a picture of me? And they're friendly. And I just say, it's really interesting. You have an interesting face. You have an interesting expression. Would you like me to send you a picture? And if they say yes, then what I do is give them my card. And I say, look, email me your email address and I will send you a picture. And it's happened once in a blue moon. I mean, once you give them their card, they figure, oh, you know, they never bother. That's what happens once in a while. Okay. So yes, when they do see me though, it is important for me to then become incognito again. Put the camera down. I may just stand there and watch and smile and laugh. A few minutes, they just ignore me and they go about their business, and then I shoot again if I like the scene, if I don't think I've had it. Now, when I got this picture, I actually looked at my screen, which I never do, because I like to judge later. I like to shoot first and then judge later when I get home. So what I do is I look at the screen, I said, oh, I got what I want. I can retire. I mean, that's it, I'm done. I mean, I can't shoot a better shot than this. This is great. And I just walked away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all that. So the works are also available on our website. I encourage everybody that have been here with us tonight, if you haven't done so already, go to the website, check out these amazing works, spend some time with them. They'll tell you so many stories that you're not even anticipating. I know that all of us at LACP, we were thrilled to be able to share these works, and we've enjoyed thoroughly Meryl's selections and the process as well. So let me just thank everybody for joining us, and especially Ellen, Meryl, and David for coming on and sharing your work and your process. We've learned so much. It has been incredible. Thank you so much.